Hey yo, it's the LifeShot podcast. Change your world and change the world.
Massimo, welcome to LifeShot podcast.
Thank you.
It was great to meet you the other week.
Delighted to meet you too.
Yeah. Massimo, I found out about you just through networking, actually.
Yes.
And I understand that you're a business coach.
Yes.
As well as running a wellness clinic.
Yes, I do.
So you want to give us just a brief background as to, who you are and what you're doing currently?
Okay, how far do you want me to go?
Just a general overview.
Right, okay, so my background, I used to be, I still have at heart a techie. So I essentially studied computer science and software engineering. I was a software engineer for about 10 years. I moved to this country about year 8 of those 10 years. So when I moved to this country in 94, I was still a software engineer, systems engineer, was working like this. And I found myself to be the most commercially oriented person in a bunch of, company full of geeks.
So they mostly just want to do the job and you're like, hey, how can we make money from this?
Absolutely. So I felt I was very geeky. The moment I moved into this company, I realized I wasn't even close to be very geek. So from there, my boss at the time said, you should be our marketing manager. And my first question was, what does marketing mean? I knew nothing about marketing. So I went to school, I did some courses and I learned and I bought lots of books and I talked to lots of people as I do. And I ended up becoming marketing manager for this company, then marketing director. I grew into it. So I did marketing since 1996. I've been doing marketing in some forms as a marketing manager director. Then in 2006, I had another call. I felt like I wanted to do something different in life. And this is where I discovered that there were people out there called coaches and they do any kind of coaching. Now, my background in parallel, in my other part of my life, I've been a martial artist since the late 70s. I've been teaching martial arts since the late 80s. And so it was literally one of those moments, a eureka moment. So I was teaching martial arts already then. In 2007, I founded my club here in Cambridge, Charisma, in 99. So I was already like 8 years into my club. And I was teaching martial arts and I enjoyed doing that. I still do. And all of a sudden I realized that there is something that can be done to businesses and to people in a similar way I do teach martial arts. So I said, okay, I want to learn this. So I went to some courses. I learned the standard kind of personal coaching program, which is a basic program of learning how to apply coaching methodologies to any conversation. Then I wanted to specialize into business and executive and team, so I did all the specializations. So back in 2008, probably the worst time in history because it was just
the crash.
After the crash, I started my coaching business, which I ran for a couple of years, just doing coaching to owners of small businesses and company directors around Cambridge. And this is where I started my lots of networking in order to get my network around because until then I was working mostly in Italy and Spain, so my network in Cambridge was negligible.
And this is the time you were blogging as well, because you said you were writing quite a lot.
Yes, so I started my first blog, which is called martialwatt.com, which was an idea of discussing martial arts for people who are not interested or not interested but not into martial arts. So a lot of people say, oh, these people punching each other, kicking each other, fighting, what is it? Is it real? Is it not? There's a lot of skepticism around martial arts. And so I think at that time I started writing this blog, which discusses various aspects about martial arts, the concepts behind it, why people should train it, different kind of training, different kind of styles. And as I'm having conversation with people like my students or people I encounter here and there, I always add posts about this sort of thing. Then I started my personal blog, which is mix some bits and bobs of any kind of ideas.
Stuff that interests you, right?
Yeah, stuff that interests me. I blend in stuff about coaching, stuff about networking, stuff about everything else. I have to say, however, I tried really hard to be a consistent blogger. Life gets in the way a lot. So, I go period that there are sometimes I write several posts in a month and then I go months without writing, particularly in these two blogs I just mentioned. So, it's difficult sometimes. So going back to me, so yes, I am a business coach. I do lots of networking. And back in 2010, a friend of mine who's also a fellow martial artist and also, a coach and hypnotherapist, had this idea of starting this wellness center, a private clinic more than a wellness center. He spotted an opportunity for a building that had potential, which is where we are now at the moment. And so he called me and he said, Massimo, we discussed many times about doing a business together. Would you like to meet? I have an opportunity for us. I said, okay, fine. So we met and he showed me the plan and he pointed out that many of the clinics of this kind in Cambridge were not run the way he thought it could be run. So he said, putting together the fact that you and I have a big marketing background, we can help people to do their business better, we can reach out to more people, we can definitely make a business out of it. So we did. So in 2010 we opened this clinic, which we ran together until 2013. Then in 2013 he had the opportunity of his lifetime to join a brilliant team of people for an agency that is a PPC agency. And he said, I can't throw this opportunity in the bin. What shall I do? I said, okay, you go. I said, I like the clinic. I'm going to keep it. So we had a very friendly agreement. So I bought his shares of him. And I've been running the clinic since. So he left in 2013 in May. So it's exactly 6 years from now. He left. We had about 19 practitioners working with us at that time. Now I've got 79 as of yesterday.
Today, I was going to talk about how
Sure.
the increase of the wellness is actually becoming a big thing.
Yes.
Or at least maybe because I'm kind of entrenched in that world now.
Yes.
But I think people are becoming more aware that they need to start looking after themselves, investing in themselves
Yes.
in a different way that maybe that they're used to
Sure.
understanding it.
Yes.
So today I'd like to talk about building a resilience, but not just... I think there's different types of resilience in life. Body resilience against diseases. There's mental resilience,
Yes.
emotional resilience,
Yes.
and heart resilience.
Of course.
So let's talk today about building that resilience, but by using our mind and our body today. Because I think you have a lot of experience, especially in the martial arts, and how
Yes.
that can help.
Yes. Of course, I'm more than happy to discuss this. It's where would it start? The point is, I've been doing martial arts for such a long time. For me, it's part of my life. It's very much into my DNA. It's not something which I don't put it in discussion. So a couple of weeks ago, I did a little speech at we had a barbecue for my club. We were celebrating 20 years of Charisma. So we started in May 1999. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a barbecue party at my place in my garden. And in that, I did a speech which I improvised on the moment. I didn't write anything down, so I just went to speak for 10 minutes about the fact that for me, training martial art is not an option. It's not something, what shall I do today? It's Tuesday. So for me, it's so much part of my daily or weekly routine.
It's like a habit, in a way.
I built it as a habit, and I built it as a habit so that I don't have to think about it, whether I will go training tonight. There is training on a Tuesday, there is training on a Wednesday, there is training on a Thursday, there is training on a Sunday. For me, it's in my diary, and I work around that. So if
priority?
Absolutely, it is a priority. I built a priority in my case because I have responsibility toward a club. I need to turn up. Obviously, I have a backup. I have like 7 instructors working with me. So there is always someone who can run a lesson, more than one very often. but the key point is I make it my own priority to be there, so that if not necessarily every time I'm training full on, but that gives me structure, I will have to be there and I will have to put the effort, because in order to show to my students that they can be better for themselves, I have to do it myself. I'm over 50 years of age, and if I don't train, very easily I will lose my strength, my flexibility, my agility, and I'm still putting myself in discussion on a daily basis, so I'm still training. Martial arts, particularly some of the tough one. Okay, in martial arts you can divide them essentially in two areas. You got the so-called external martial arts, which are the most common, most well-known, so any kind of form of fighting and striking.
Combat,
so the
karate.
Taekwondo, karate, boxing, kickboxing, all of them are so-called external martial arts. And then you have the so-called internal martial arts, which are much less known. So martial arts like Tai Chi, like Pagua, like Shingi.
Is Qigong one of them, or not really?
Qigong is a form of
Tai Chi.
Okay, of Tai Chi. Is the softer, more meditative part. So the Qigong movements are not necessarily applicable to fight. So in Tai Chi, you got the Tai Chi Qigong, who are the movements which can be practiced by anybody up to 100 years of age, because some of them are extremely soft and can be very, very relaxing for anybody, any age, any physical ability. You don't need to be, a super fit person. Obviously, as I said, Tai Chi has a fighting part, which is called Tai Chi. I lost.
Gone out your head.
I lost. Tai Chi Chuan. So the Chuan part is the fighting part. So the same soft movements we can see application where they do push hands and stuff. But if you see it applied in reality, Tai Chi is extremely effective as a fighting style. But the point is, the majority of people stop at the Qigong, so they go soft and they keep doing these movements, which are beautiful, and they make you feel extremely well, and all the joints are worked out in the right way without excessive movements. While what I practice, for example, kickboxing, I wouldn't suggest anybody over 40 starting it, try to do it for real. I've been doing it since I was 16, so for me it's fine, and I keep myself in shape to do it. But if somebody over 40, it happens once in a while, somebody 40, 42, 45, sometimes over 50, they say, I would like to try. And I always say, yeah, okay, try. But I say, give yourself 6 months before you try to do things in the proper way, as maybe some 20 years old can do in 3 weeks. It's just like body. If you've never done any kind of extreme movements like this, like the flexibility required at hip level, the flexibility around legs, because you need to kick very high. Kickboxing is difficult. So going back to us, the martial arts, in my experience, are very helpful to build resilience from two aspects. Okay, first is the physical, because you see movements, you see techniques which need to be applied, and most people, when they start, they can't do it. They can't do it at the right speed. They can't do it at the right with the right level of coordination, because throwing a single punch or throwing a single kick, anybody can learn in 20 minutes, half an hour. I run a beginner's course. At the end of it, say most people learn very well 4 techniques in an hour. Okay, so it's not end of the world. However, in order to put together a complicated combination of punches and kicks while somebody is not cooperating, while somebody is trying to punch and kick you at the same time, that's a completely different game, and that requires time. And in general, in my experience, I notice how the amount of mental energy you require for you to learn these techniques and for you to keep yourself calm in a very irrational situation. A fighting situation cannot be rational. If somebody can keep totally calm and relaxed like it's a smile in a fighting situation, in general, there is something wrong in there. So even the best fighters, if you analyze the profile of best boxers, best MMA fighters, they are super nervous before they fight. They are a bunch of nerves, because you cannot, in the end, you go into a fighting situation and the person on the other side is equally good. You're not going to match, a street fighter with no experience with a professional fighter. When they go into the ring, the person in front of them will be of similar ability, similar level of strength, similar level of preparation.
So what does that do to their mind? They're thinking, I'm coming up against competition that's the same as me.
Yeah. So, if you hear, there are interviews with, say, Mike Tyson was an amazing fighter, but when he speaks about the emotion going into his head, when he was 19, 20 years old, he was trashing people, he was knocking them down with 2 or 3 punches, bang, people on the floor. If you hear his interviews, he said, before going into the ring, I was as scared as hell. And, but the point is not being scared, is being able to handle that fear and go forward. And if you do that exercise many, many times, and you keep training and you keep pushing forward and pushing your bar higher and higher, I want to go faster, I want to go stronger, I think it builds up an extreme resilience that when you face yourself with other situations in life, very often, you will say, okay, well, I'm used to going in the ring with somebody who wants to beat me up, so I should be okay with that. Very often it helps a great deal.
It feels like you spoke about that Mike Tyson thing where he was almost surprised. I think maybe he might have been surprised that, I'm actually, all that training is just coming to play right now, and I can do it. So he's almost surprising himself by the amount of resilience he has at the time, because before he might be doubting himself. So maybe for all of us, we think we train, and we get nervous, and when we actually do it, we realize, wow, I can actually do this. And what that does for your confidence must be pretty huge, right?
Yes, I think in general, the life, most things in life can be trained, okay? And the way you train for fight is by practicing in a safe environment. So whenever I'm introducing a young student or a junior student, somebody who just joined, like it was a typical example. Yesterday I was running a lesson. We were like 16 people, and 8 or 9 of them are all teenagers, 13 to 14 years of age, and they all started in the last month or 2 months ago. So very young, very junior. But they've been training regularly now for 3 times a week for the last 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. And I was very surprised how well they were going. But the moment I'm introducing these young people, these junior students, some of them might be in their 20s, but they've never been in front of someone who wants to punch and kick them. I always start to say, okay, take it easy, don't, because some people might just close themselves down and get scared. Other people might lash out. They feel themselves they are in a fighting situation, and they fight the same way they would have to survive on the street, which is bad in both cases. So I always say, look, nobody wants to hurt you here. Yes, of course, we are trying to punch and kick each other, but we do it in a controlled way. So my encouragement to more senior students, I do it myself, I'm always say, okay, take it easy, and I push people, and I do it in a way, so I encourage them to come along, to come forward more and more, and increase the power and increase the confidence, while they need to understand that it's a controlled fight. And at some point, if you are in a ring, the referee will say stop, and you need to be able to stop. You shouldn't be enraged and going like if you want to kill someone.
And that's the skill to control that emotion, as it were.
Yes. And some people have it naturally. Some people turn up and you say, okay, let's do some sparring after maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks. And they're natural fighters. They smile at you, but still they come at you and they fight. And other people, after years, they still fight like they're surviving every single time.
Is that not something to do with their history, their past, the way that they've been brought up, maybe the way that they process things?
Yes, and again, I don't do a full mental history of people, but you can see that people had maybe some trouble in the past. They be abused, not necessarily abused in a bad way, like the full term of abuse, but maybe they've been bullied as kids. And maybe they grew up in the wrong place, and some people have suffered, some others beating them up or something. I don't know whether it's been at family level or at neighbor level or friends level, but you can see that some people, when they're fighting, they switch on in the wrong way. And my goal as a coach is try to get rid of that. I want people in an ideal world, I would like people that they can switch on their aggressiveness when they want to, so they can fight very, very cold, as cold as possible, in terms of like cold-blooded, not to enrage.
Yeah.
Of course, there is adrenaline when you're fighting. It's impossible to go into a ring and start fighting with totally calm. But the adrenaline should be the light level of adrenaline. It should be like the irrational level of adrenaline, because that does not help you. It slows down your movements. Yeah. It doesn't allow you to have a good analysis of what's going on, see exactly what the opponent is doing, read the moves before they happen, which is all part of fighting. It's not just you see a punch coming, you try to block it. You need to see that the person is thinking about punching you before you do it. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but the key point is you need to build up that level of calmness that you can fight without feeling too under pressure, because otherwise your breath slows down.
Yeah.
You breathe shallow, so you don't
and you breathe into your chest, maybe. Yeah.
You breathe shallow. You don't breathe with the full capacity of your lungs. Therefore, the oxygenation decreases. Your brain doesn't work very well. So everything goes against you. So the more you can take long breaths when you're slightly away from your opponent, analyzing what's going on, look at your opponent, all the movement, not just punches and kicks coming at you. That works.
Would you? I think about martial arts. I think about my boys.
Mm-hmm.
So they're young at the moment, 2 and 4.
Okay.
But I think about those years when they're gonna be in school.
Yes.
Right. And you think about bullying. You think about how they're gonna cope.
Yes.
I say luckily, but my boys are very sporty now already. So they're not. You kind of think that the boys who are the jocks don't get bullied, but at the same time, it's possible that it might happen. So my question to you is:
yes,
is it beneficial for us to think about putting our kids through some kind of martial arts when they're young? Because I think because of what it does for you mentally.
I have tried with my daughters. One of them trained martial arts with me for about 4 years. The other one totally refuses. However, I would, if it was me, if I was the Ministry of Education, I'd put it compulsory at school like they do football and anything else. I think martial arts are extremely beneficial for a number of reasons. Because particularly if you go for a young kid through a traditional martial art. Traditional, I mean the ones that still have the original names, like Jiu-Jitsu, Taekwondo, Karate. They might not be the most effective ways of fighting, okay? But it doesn't matter. You don't want the killer. You don't want the fighter in the house.
You don't want your child to turn into a bully and fight everybody
exactly.
else, right? Yeah.
But the level traditional martial arts are taught in good clubs. Let's assume that the teacher is a good teacher who had the right kind of background, which is also very important to check before you put your child into a club. I would always say it's great. It's great because it gives them self-confidence. They know they can stand up for themselves, but also at the same time they know that there is a discipline behind, there are rules behind, and they learn to listen. When the instructor says, okay, stop, they stop. When they say, okay, start, they start. Sit down and watch. There is a lot of, when I grew up in the 70s, in the 80s, education was still very regimented, okay? Nowadays, in this country in particular, education is very loose. Children have the liberty to tell their teachers what they think. There is no respect for authorities. There is no respect for the police. There is no respect for anything. So in general, helping children to get a bit of discipline from that point of view would be great. And also, in my opinion, if children have a space once, twice, 3 times a week to go in and channel all the negativity they're building up, they are not going to go out and bully people. They're not going to go out and fight on the street because they can fight in their gym in a controlled environment under supervision whenever they want. And so whenever they have anger that they need to channel somewhere, this is a great way. And as a martial artist, very often you learn then to channel this energy, let's call it, even if anger is let's call it negative energy, but it's energy. And a lot of people, when they are angry, they can do amazing things just because they're angry. So sometimes helping these people to channel this energy into something positive, like learning a skill, which could be extremely challenging. All the moves and the accuracy and the precision that you need to put in moves. That is a great skill to have.
Do you think that those kids who do, let's say a kid has been through martial arts for a number of years during their primary school years.
Yes.
Do you think that it helps them mentally at school, as in like tasks that need to be done, projects that need to be done? Are they generally, because there's obviously exceptions, but
I believe so.
Yeah.
In my experience, I have seen, as I said, I've been training martial arts since I was a pre-teenager. I was 12 years old when I started in 1978. And I've been training since. I have trained with thousands of people as a peer-to-peer when I was in my master's gym in Italy until 1994. When I moved here, I trained. So I've seen thousands and thousands of people going through martial arts, some of them for a few months, some of them for a few years. And what I notice in general is that, yes, the answer is yes, people learn to be more resilient. People need to, face adversity, face things don't go right. Of course, they don't go right sometimes, but you carry on and you push, and you learn to push harder and harder and harder when it's time to push. So definitely.
And it's not too late, is it? I mean, we're talking about children now, but what about someone who's in their 30s?
It's never too late. In my opinion, it's never too late. Depending on the martial arts you want to adopt, some of them are more soft. If you want to start, say, something like Aikido can be learned even in your 30s, in the 40s, and the way you do it can be done very easily without risking to hurt yourself, because there is no fighting in Aikido. It's all attack and defense, but there is no competition as such in Aikido. So there are lots of martial arts, or there are martial arts who are not necessarily that physical, even if they seem very dangerous. Like if you do anything with sticks, like eskrima, or any of the application of sticks, so eskrima, kali, arnis, all of this, you are fighting with a stick which is about this long, so there is no physical contact between the two opponents. But the skill needed to move that stick at a very high speed is a lot of skill.
And it's good for your mental agility.
Agility, very, very fast thinking. But what you learn in martial arts, like in most of other physical activities, is that your brain will never think fast enough for the speed that your body has to move at. Okay? Nobody, say if you look at, say, some top, tennis player, Federer is not saying, oh, there is a ball traveling at 200 kilometers an hour my way, so I'm going to move, swing the racket. The guy has been training for years, so his mind, the moment he sees the other person is about to strike the ball, he already sees where it's going, and he's already throwing himself in the right direction, and he puts his arm at the right angle for the best.
It's instinct almost.
Yeah. It has to become an instinct, because you cannot think fast enough. Our body has a lot of limitation. Our brain is a beautiful machine, but it's not a super fast computer. So the only way to learn any physical activity at a high speed, so anything, so football, I would say, or tennis, or anything, including martial arts, that requires very fast thinking against an opponent move, you need to, instill it inside, to assimilate it, let's say, at subconscious level, so that you are moving before you know what you move against. Otherwise, you can't. It's just physically you can't.
So the health benefits, for you personally, right? You've been doing it since 12 years old. You keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You just over 50 now.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I have more energy that I can spend. People always say, I don't know how you do it. But the fact is, the few people I know that have been doing martial arts the same level I have been doing, so 20 plus years, they're all like this. They are full of energy. They don't get tired. Well, even if you get tired, you know that you have to push through, and you don't get exhausted. In terms of like a cardiovascular system works very well. Your respiratory system works very well. Your digestive system works very well. You sleep well. I sleep on command, really. I can go to bed.
You just go like...
And I sleep deeply, and I wake up in the morning fully refreshed. So all my body works extremely well, and I can't, I don't know. There isn't another Massimo that we split. If I could clone myself at 12 years old and having the non-martial artist Massimo and me and see which one works better. But what I can say is, as I say, I'm 53 years old. I can train 4 or 5 times a week martial arts, and I still go to the gym once a week, or I used to swim once a week. So I do an extra physical activity. I sleep good hours and I feel fully rested when I sleep. So my whole body works extremely well, processing energy, food, sleep, rest, all that works extremely well for me.
I think when we think about our lives, our bodies, and our minds, sometimes we might separate them and think of body and mind.
Sure.
But when I hear you speak, it's almost like you're operating as a whole in that your body is primed, but it helps your mind to be primed, and then you can perform well in body and perform well in mind.
Absolutely. And there is a lot of evidence. Even I can't mention medical research, so this is my experience on my own body and mind, and on the people I've seen and I've trained with for many years. The two things work very well together. So you can have an Adonis body. You can be genetically. I'm not genetically one of those super bodies, because the shape I have, and I tend to put body fat easily on if I don't exercise properly. If I overeat, my body puts weight on very easily, fat on very easily, but I take care of myself. What I say is, you can have the most amazing body, but if you don't take care of it, or if your mind is not right, if you are depressed, you lose any instinct, any stimulus to do anything, you're not going to perform well, and vice versa. Okay, you can have a body which is not great, but if you have the right mental attitude and the right motivation, you can build a lot of things. The two things work together, and you can see there is evidence that if you are training well, in my case, martial arts give me lots of satisfaction. The benefit, the endorphins, the dopamine that gets released at the end of each training help me to feel nice, happy, relax, and go home and have a nice night with my family, do whatever I want, to see my friends, and the same time is the same. And that also helps the other way around. So, for example, if you train Tai Chi, it's funny, I was listening to a master and he was saying, when you're training and doing certain moves, he was saying, try to relax your face and try to smile. Because smiling, you are forcing your brain to, you push your smile inward. So sometimes you feel happy, or you have an emotion that brings a smile to your face. But sometimes if you put a smile on your face, your brain will kind of pick it up from the outside and bring the smile inside.
So it's the other way around. Smile to get the emotion.
Exactly. So I'm not sure whether that, neurologically speaking, if we put an MRI scan on our head, will do. But there is evidence that the two things work very well together. So martial artists in general have been talking about the connection of body and mind, and the fact that your mind drives your body can drive your mind. In my experience, it is true. And if you train well, the feedback that your body will give you makes you feel good. And if you feel good, or if you know you're going to feel good, you are more likely to be motivated. A couple of years ago, I wrote a blog post on my martial watch. You might look at it. It's called The Reset Effect. And I wrote that blog post because I realized, how over a period of maybe a couple of weeks, I was leaving the office here. Very often I finish working here at 6 and I go like 200 meters that direction. There is Cassie Carriage. That's where I train most of my evenings. And I remember how I said over the last couple of weeks, I noticed how I would walk into the training venue, sometimes stressed, sometimes irritated because something went wrong at work, sometimes excited because there was something good going on. But what I noticed was that regardless the status, my mind state I went in when I was getting in, my mental state when I come out is always the same. That's why I call it the reset effect. I.e., my mind tunes into my training mode. My training, because I'm teaching, but also if I wasn't teaching, the fact that you're training in front of someone or several people who are there to punch and kick you, you can't really put your mind on anything else. You can't keep your mind linked to the problems you had at work or the success, you just close a new deal or something. So you become extremely aware. You keep your awareness totally focused on, for that hour and a half on the training you're doing. And when you come out,
you've forgotten about all those
you forgot
other problems,
all the problems. All the problems have been pushed on a side, maybe ready to be seen again the following day. So that was my reset effect. And I think I noticed more recently, which is when I hurt myself. Like a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, doing a very extraneous exercise, I tore the bicep, one of the tendons of my biceps. It came off completely, had to be operated. And it's funny enough how I was operated on a Thursday and already on a Tuesday the following week. The doctor said to be off for minimum 3 months doing nothing and the next 3 months to do mild training, which I did to some extent. But 5 days after the operation, I was in the gym. I was teaching. So I had my arms strapped on my chest.
You still carried on.
And I was still show punches. I was teaching. I wasn't doing any training. I did a few kicks. I did a warm-up. I did the stretches, but I didn't do anything else. And the funny thing was that I perceived the same reset effect going into the gym. Just the fact of walking into this environment, which gives me so much. Even on those lessons where I was not training, because I always thought that the actual endorphins, adrenaline first, and then the endorphins and the dopamine was what caused the so-called reset effect and make me feel good. But I just noticed that the mere fact of walking into the room, the mere fact of seeing my people training.
There's an energy there, wasn't
Yes.
there? There's got to be a collective, collaborative energy.
A lot of it, yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people putting a lot of effort to train.
Some people might be listening or watching and having a little bit of envy about you having this discipline to go to do this and to be in this mental state, in this body state. What about people who might want to get into it, but they're saying things like, "Oh, my work's too busy. My life's just too busy." I mean, what message do you have for that?
Well, in general, my suggestion is, if you don't want to consider it a sport or any other physical activity, consider it an investment in your health. Full stop. So instead of waiting until you're not well and then start taking medicines to repair what you've done in terms of damage, my suggestion is, yes, okay, there are people out there that might be working 70 hours a week in unfriendly timing, and most martial arts clubs would be training at convenient time. In my case, I run a club which is convenient, 6 o'clock p.m., which is great if you're working Monday to Friday. If you go to school Monday to Friday, you go out to work. Obviously, if you do shift work, if you work in a hospital, if you're a doctor or a nurse, as I have doctors and nurses working with me, training with me, it's not the best training, and ideally having maybe a personal trainer or having enough knowledge which allows you maybe to do some training on your own would be useful. But my suggestion would be, in a club like mine, for example, we train 4 times a week. And I'm not training 4 times a week because I'm expecting everybody to train 4 times a week. But this gives you flexibility. So if you can't train on a Tuesday, you can come on Thursday and Sunday. You can come on Monday and Monday and Thursday. You can do any combination. And many clubs out there will offer, particularly the busy gyms. My club is a totally amateur club. So we just charge some money in order to keep the club going. So there's not a financial.
You're not making big bucks out of it.
I don't make any money really. It's more to keep the club going. But there are many clubs out there which are run professionally. Professionally doesn't mean that mine is not run professionally. That they are run by people who are making a living out of it. So those clubs very often are offering a wider number of lessons, more lessons per day, more lessons most days of the week they are open. So it's possible to join a martial arts club wherever. My point is baby steps. So if you want to start, I would say start by training at least, I would say 2 times a week is the minimum to keep your body going. But start training 2 times a week. And what pays back in most things in life, but martial arts is one of the examples, is consistency and patience. So don't expect to be a Jackie Chan or Jean-Claude Van Damme in the next 3-6 months. You're not going to do it. Yeah. And if you are over 30, it's probably going to take you a long time. But if you are patient and you say, okay, in a couple of years I want to be a good martial artist, most people will be able to do it. And the consistency of training. It pays back more to keep consistent training 2 times a week over the next year, 2 years, than try to train 4 times a week this week. You hurt yourself because your body can't bear it. Then you take a week off and then you come back and you go 1 week, you do 1 lesson. And then the following week you do 3 lessons and again you push yourself. The most appropriate way to do it is start with, I say, 2 times a week. And initially, don't push very hard. Get it very light and very nice and relaxed. And then as soon as you feel your muscles are getting better, your flexibility improves, you build up and you build up and you build up. And within, depending on your age and genetics, because as I said, we are all different. So some people respond very, very well to training and other people don't. Some people they come in, maybe they are very inflexible and within 3 months they are as flexible as the majority of other people. Maybe other people take a year. Yeah. But the consistency is what pays back. So that I would suggest it to anybody from age 3-4 to age 60, 70 if you want to try. But obviously you need to choose the right martial art for yourself, and you need to put yourself in mind that it's going to be a long-term investment. It's not a short-term fix.
This that's good, and I like consistency and patience to build resilience. So going back to the resilience thing, and also talking about fear. Now, socially, some people fear the situation of walking into a new club. They don't know anybody. But kind of getting a little bit away from the martial arts type of thing now, and talking about overcoming fear in social environments as well as maybe work. Maybe you doubt yourself.
Sure.
And what are some of the steps that somebody could take? We can talk about the physical, but also the mental steps that might be needed to really build your emotional resilience and mental resilience.
Yes, that's a very good question. Thank you. Well, I would say, okay, let's discount for a second the martial art aspect. Okay, if you walk into a martial art club, I'm not speaking. I speak out of pride because I hear a lot of people saying that, and I see a lot of feedback out of my club. My club, apart from being is a very friendly environment. So most people coming in will be welcome, will be smile at, hey, how you doing? What's your name? Are you new here? So there is a very friendly welcoming. And one of my instructor, he also runs a social aspect of the club. So they do like a pub night once every week or every second week. He tries to get all the... I used to do it myself when I was in my 30s and my early 40s. Nowadays, the majority of my students could be my son, daughters, or some of them even grandsons. So I feel a bit out of place, try to organize the friendly social, let's go out drinking with people who are in their teens or in their 20s. So these guys, couple of decades younger than me, so he does it very well. So from some aspect would be useful to see, if you look at the social aspect of a club, it's good to see that there is not just people punching and kicking each other. However, if you're purely considering joining a martial art club and you feel unsure whether this would be the right environment, my suggestion would be go and watch 1 or 2 or 3 sessions. Walk in and say, hi, I'm thinking about joining. Would it be possible for me to watch? Yeah. You see immediately whether there is a bunch of happy people training, smiling at each other and tapping on the glove when they start and finish and so on, or you see a bunch of really highly powered, testosterone-filled people that just want to trash each other. So that's a good thing. In my experience, what I've seen, at least around town, around Cambridge, a lot of places are friendly, but I can't speak for all of them because I haven't analyzed them all. Going back to the social fear, let's look at a very completely different example. So walk into a networking event. Again, fear, a lot of people feel fear, but very often is an irrational fear. Okay, so you walk into a networking event. There are no lions or wolves or bears that are going to eat you. Okay, first.
You're not going to die.
Okay, you don't walk into, a reunion or criminals of drug dealers. Most of the people in there will be in similar situation to you. Some people might have lots of self-confidence, which in my case comes in a lot of situations like this, having gone through a lot of situations like this. But even myself, I feel pretty self-confident. First time I walk into a networking event, I don't know. I look around and say, what's going on here? However, there are a few things to rationalize. So start to analyzing, ask yourself a question. What is the worst that can happen? Okay, the worst can happen is I walk into a place and nobody talks to me. Okay, fine. Maybe that's not a nice networking environment, first. Second is, the worst can happen, say nobody's going to abuse you. Nobody, in my experience, in like years and years of networking, nobody's going to abuse you. Nobody's going to mistreat you. Nobody's going to put any physical threat on you. So very much the fear is like, okay, I'm walking into a room full of strangers and I don't know what to expect. What to expect is very simple. Some people will say, hey, what's your name? How do you do? What brings you here? What kind of business you are in? So it's useful to rehearse in your mind, okay, what should I do when people ask me? And this is very useful, particularly people that just changed career. I was a marketing manager for 15 years. The first time I walk into a room and people say, what do you do? I'm a business coach now. I have to remember that I'm a business coach. And then you go, oh, a business coach. What kind of business do you work with? So you need to be prepared to answer these kind of questions. None of them is like shouldn't put you in any difficulty if you just changed career and you were working for a company in a certain position and all of a sudden you decided you become a massage therapist, like I suggest. Many of my therapists here say, okay, go to networking. In the worst case, people are going to ask you, what do you do? And you say, well, I help people with backache. Oh, how do you do that? Well, I'm a sports massage therapist. And most of the cases, these people come home with 2 or 3 business cards because people ask them to do it.
Is it not the fear that you'll get there and you're going to have to make the first step to approach somebody? That's pretty scary.
It is scary. Yeah, I appreciate that. And again, if you walk into a networking event, which wants to call itself networking event, and nobody walks toward you, maybe you're in the wrong room. Maybe you shouldn't go back there. Or maybe a simple way to overcome fear, which I have adopted and I still adopt nowadays, if I go to a new networking event, I don't know, is to be there as early as possible. Okay. Ideally before it starts, or a few minutes before it starts. Not too early, otherwise you might irritate the organizer who are still panicking. Oh, this is, we're doing this, we're doing that. So you don't want to be in the way. But one little trick, which I have taught quite a few people that come to, say, Pitch and Mix, which is one of the networking events I do, is if you don't know anybody, the best thing to do is walk in as soon as possible, hoping that the organizer is there. So what you do is you go in and introduce yourself. And you literally go there and you say, hi, I'm Massimo. I'm new to this. I've never been here. You're the organizer. Yeah, good to meet you. What kind of people? So you can ask 2 or 3 questions without being too intrusive. The good thing about that is that you are already there when, say, guest number 2 turns up, who might be in your same situation, but when he or she turns up, sees you talking to the organizer, so he doesn't know whether you just met 2 minutes ago. So you are already not the latest person arriving and nobody knows you. And if the person who comes in knows the organizer will say, oh, hey, Joe, how you doing? This is Massimo. He's new here. And you have already somebody to talk to. Okay. Alternatively, if this person is new as well, the introduction will be there, and you are two rookie at this new networking event, and you have something in common, so you can start having a chat with this person. So when the other people arrive, you're not going to be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
The worst is, well, a lot of people do when I organize networking events. They don't know the place, they don't know anybody, never been there, and they turn up late or slightly late. So there is a room full of strangers, 20, 30 people, and they walk in. And there is where the panic starts, because you say, and now what? Who am I going to talk to? And again, if you're in the right networking event, somebody might spot you and say, oh, that is a new guy or new lady, come in and have a chat with us. But in many cases, people get scared. I've seen people coming in a pitch and mix, arriving late, sitting themselves at the bottom of the room, at the back of the room, and then leave after 15 minutes because they couldn't bear. And in general, I try to be welcoming, but what happens is you've been there, the agenda runs for 45 minutes. After the agenda starts at 9:15, I don't want to interrupt to welcome someone who was supposed to be there quarter to 10, a quarter to 9. So I say hi, and that's about as much as as far as I go. So
don't be late.
Don't be late. The point is, in my opinion, in my experience, as I've done networking, be there early, stay there until the last person is leaving. That's the best way. The next time you turn up, the organizer will remember you very well. Hey, they call you by name. Massimo, how you doing? Long time no see, my friend. So the second time you turn up already is not your first time. You already met the organizer because that person has spoken to you at length before and maybe after the party or after the networking event. You might even offer, oh, can I help you to pack up? So will make a difference. You're not an anonymous person turning up, say hi and leaving. You are a person that they have met and spoken to for minutes, and that makes a difference.
And this comes back to one of my questions, which was, because we're talking about resilience today mostly, and thinking about some people try something and they give up. They give up too early. Some people start something and they maybe 3 months of gym, then they stop. But some people just carry on, right? I wonder what it is that does that. Is it a lack of self-confidence? Is it a lack of seeing the benefits of those situations, like joining a club, a networking event, or club? What do you think it might be?
I think it could be a combination of many. We're all different, but I think in general, my suggestion would be, my opinion would be to have a clear expectation, if you can, of what you're expecting out of this. Okay, because if you leave, you don't know where you're going. You always end up somewhere. Like that's Lao Tzu, one of the Taoists. So if you set off, you don't know where you're going. You're gonna end up somewhere, but that somewhere might not be what you want. So if you're joining a club, ideally, martial arts club, ideally you would want to set some basic goals about, okay, within a month I want to be able to do X, Y, Z. Within 3 months I want to be able to do whatever. If you join a gym, you need to give you a gym in terms of going to lift weights or do machine work or cross training, anything. You need to maybe measure your performance at the very beginning and then see where your performance are taking you within a month, 2 months, 3 months. Because if you don't measure, you don't know. What you don't measure, you don't control. But what you don't measure, you can't realistically check and verify what's working or not working. It's like a lot of business owners, okay? They have a very poor or no financial control of their company. So when you ask themselves, okay, what's your turnover? What's your profitability? If you know exactly your company is turning over 10 grand a month and you have a gross margin of £5,500 a month and blah, 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 EBIT at the end of your month is 2,500, you know exactly where you are. So if you want to improve it, you can say, okay, I can raise.
It's measured. So
it's measured. And going back to the fear, going back to this, the consistency is very important. But in order to be able to push through when times get tough, is important that you measure and you set expectation. So this is what I do when I work with a client. They come to me and say, okay, I would like to make £5,000 a month more. I want my company to make £5,000 a month. How much are you making at the moment? If you don't know where you are at the moment, it's very difficult to set goals precisely. Okay, so how are we gonna? one question that in coaching we always try to apply is, how do we measure success? Success for you might not be success for me, and vice versa. So for me, if you and I train kickboxing together, what for you could be amazing achievement, say doing a spinning back axe kick. Yeah. This is something I've been doing since the 80s.
So for you, it's not amazing.
For me, it's like another day in the office.
Yeah.
So my expectation at my age of kickboxing is try to train as much as possible without getting hurt and keeping myself fit. For someone who joins today and they say, okay, in 6 months I want to fight in a ring against a person of similar abilities, then we need to measure where you want to be in a month, where you want to be in 2 months, when you want to be in 3 months. And that, I think, a lot of people go very much on autopilot in life. They just let it go and see how it goes. And then at some point, shall I go, shall I not? A lot of gyms, for example, are making a fortune on the fact that they rely on the fact that a lot of people will sign up so that they say, I'm a member of a gym, but most of these people will not train. Yeah. And again, personally, having joined a gym this year in January, after, 30 years I haven't been member of a gym. So I train kickboxing and martial arts. I've been training systematically, but I haven't done any weightlifting since the 80s until January. So in January I decided to join a gym. There is a gym just down the road here. So I decided to give it a go. And but the same way I do kickboxing, I set myself that now every Saturday morning, like, there is no exception. There is no Saturday morning, 10:30, I'm in the gym.
Yeah.
And I set myself a program for the things that kickboxing doesn't help me. So I need to sort out my shoulders because sometimes they hurt. I need to sort out my glutes because sometimes they hurt. So I set myself a program and I'm challenging myself. So every week I'm expecting to lift slightly more or slightly longer, higher number of repetitions.
So measuring is important.
Measuring, because if you don't measure, you can't judge whether you're going up or down or steady. And you need to accept failure. You need to accept that some week you're not gonna. A few weeks ago I went out with my friends. I had 3 or 4 beers on the Friday night. So for the first time I went training on a Saturday after having a few beers on a Friday night. And I'm not talking about an excessive amount. It was probably 4 pints in a night. But my God,
next day
the performance was not there. I went in, I was feeling okay. But when it was time to lift the extra push, I could feel the difference. When it was time to run on the cross-training machine, I could feel after 15 minutes I was struggling, while normally I go for half an hour without interruption. Yeah. So you can see, and you need to accept. If you can accept the setbacks once you can measure why the setback is there. Yeah. And you push through.
It reminds me of that. Someone wrote a book called like startup businesses: build, measure, learn.
Yes.
So I suppose it's a little bit different with the training, because you're measuring. Well, I mean, you're building muscle, but measure it and then learn. Like this morning, I'm trying to beat my record of 1 minute and 40 seconds doing a headstand, But this morning, and I determined in my mind that I was going to do it, but just somehow my body wasn't responding this morning. So I felt like I failed, right?
Yeah.
But I know that that's not the end of it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that I'm never going to try that again. Yeah. Because I know my measurements. I know that I can do what they call that, not the plank, the shelf, which is, you just... Basically, your body's on the floor like
against your elbows and straight body. Yeah, wow.
I can do that for 40 seconds now. And when I first started, I'm talking 6 months ago, I couldn't do 10 seconds.
Okay.
So now I know I couldn't do 10 seconds. Now I know I can do 40 seconds. Yeah. And then I'm going to just add 5 seconds on that each time to see how I can go.
This conversation brings a lot of interesting memories, because you have, to some extent, whenever you're trying to push performance, you will get to a point when then you plateau.
Yeah, because your body can only do certain things.
And at some point you need to decide whether plateau is just because you reach a plateau and you are happy with the plateau, or you want to push further up. Sometimes you need to decide where that is going. For give you an idea, 11 years ago I stopped working as an executive for a company. That's when I started my business, 2008. So for the previous 5 years, I was commuting to Italy on a weekly basis. So I would fly out every Monday, come back on Wednesday, or another week I would fly out on a Wednesday, come back on Friday. 3 days in Italy, where I was running, swimming, and practicing Wing Chun, which is a Chinese martial art. And I was running my club here. So I was either training on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then fly out on Wednesday, or I would
time for family.
I would be in Italy, let alone that, with 2 kids growing and stuff. Or I would be training Monday, so I would be in Italy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then train Thursday and Sunday and the following week. So that was for me 5 years. And I was accepting at that time that my performance as a fighter has diminished, my strength, when I was fighting, I was less capable because of the lack of training, lack of intensive training. So I said, okay, June 2008 was the end of my commuting because I finished that job in Italy and I started working here in Cambridge. So I said, okay, as soon as I finish, I'm going to be working out. I'm going to be training in the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week. I'm going to build up. And this is where I discovered that my body was not trained for that, could not bear it. So the moment I pushed the 2, 3 times a week training hard into 5 times a week training hard, I started to break apart. I started my shoulders hurting, my hips hurting. I was not recovering fast enough. So I had to accept that for me, training 3 times a week intensively is as far as my body is prepared to accept. And that's it. Fine, you have to accept it. I never had the ambition of becoming a fighter, like a professional fighter, and go in the ring to fight. So for me, it was fine, and I had to accept this. And then with age as well, I was already in my 40s. So most people in my position who are running martial arts club past 40 years of age, they stop training. They're teaching, they show a bit of things, they show maybe one technique, but none of them is training with their students. Very, very few of them. While I'm still training, pads on and I'm training.
As you should. I think you should.
Well, my master he turned 70 last year, and I'm still in touch with him, and he's still training with his students. He's still training because for him, training is part of his training with them is part of his keeping himself in shape. If you're not in shape, how can you inspire people to be in shape?
Yeah.
How can you inspire people to do certain things? I don't like the concept, run faster while you're sitting on a chair, maybe drinking a Coke. It just doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah. Great. So I think if we can, I was going to talk about forgiveness. And it's a slightly different thing that we've been talking about.
Okay.
But I do believe that forgiveness, and you tell me if you agree, forgiveness can actually increase our resilience emotionally. As forgiveness obviously does a lot of good things for ourselves. Personally, it frees ourselves from things. But have you ever put the two together? And even if you haven't, what's your thoughts on forgiveness?
Forgiveness in terms of forgiving yourself or forgiving others?
Both, actually. Okay. Because I think they're both important.
Yeah. All right. Yes. If you look at it from that point of view, I believe forgiveness, it is useful. It is an important aspect of being able to move on to the next step. Okay? So if you hold on, the point is, if you're not forgiving anything, if you're not forgiving a particular thing, you're holding on negative emotions. For negative emotions, which sometimes are useful, but in the long term, they're just negative, okay? And let's not forget that we are hardwired to be tuned toward negativity, okay? Our brain, neurologically speaking, we have about 7 times the brain matter to process. 7 to 1 is the processing of negative versus positive.
7 to 1.
Yes, because if you think historically, like from an evolution point of view, negative things that can happen to you can kill you. Negative could be a lion, a bear, a wolf wants to eat you. Anything that is negative, our body needs to react very quickly, otherwise you might die. Positive emotions are all about feeding, reproduction, and being good. Okay? If you don't eat tonight, you will survive. We are designed to survive maybe days or weeks without eating. If you get eaten tonight by a lion, you won't survive. So the importance of reacting very, very dramatically sometimes to negativity, to negative emotion, is very much hardwired into our own brain at hardware level, at brain level. However, going back to the forgiveness, the point is, if you are holding on to anything done to you in the wrong way and you hold on the negative bits, then you're more likely to store a lot of negativity and keep a lot of negativity, which doesn't help you to move on. So in order to build up resilience, sometimes it's good to acknowledge that something bad has happened. It's good to acknowledge that something negative has happened to you or somebody that did it to you. But look at positive, look at the future, look at what you can do to move on. Mm-hmm. And this is in terms of forgiving other people doing bad things to you, and as well as forgiving yourself to do something wrong or not to do something right. Sometimes, you might beat yourself up because you didn't do something right, you didn't do it in the right way. And very often it's useful to just say, okay, move on. So that will help. But again, building resilience at any level, physical or mental resilience, it is a long-term, like I mentioned today about training, about anything. Everything should always be seen as a long-term investment. Okay, nobody's gonna.
There's no quick fixes, really.
There is no quick fix in my. There are techniques, mental exercises you can use to speed up the process.
Get results.
Yeah,
quicker or something.
Get results. Be able to measure what's right, measure what's wrong. Be able to say, okay, this was wrong, but next time I'm going to do it better. So little exercises, be able to analyze what goes right, goes wrong. What I said before, what you measure, you can control. So is you can apply that to your own mind in a lot of ways, in my opinion, at least I do. And it is useful to build up your resilience, because the next time something happens, you know that the worst that can happen is X, or the worst that can happen is Y. Therefore, you can move on without, oh my God, it's terrible, this happened, oh, that it always happened to me. And a lot of people tend to feel, oh, it always happens to me, I'm so unlucky, everything is negative, nobody likes me, nobody loves me, nobody wants to work with me. Yeah, life is not necessarily fair all the time, but
it's tough, but it can also be rewarding.
It can be tough, but you can work on it to feel less vulnerable. The resilience is to build up, to reduce your vulnerability to negative stuff in general.
Yeah. So just to recap then,
Sure.
And I think it sounds like what we've been covering today is that we need to have a long-term view of the investment into ourselves to build up resilience.
Yes.
I don't, we live in a quick fix kind of culture.
Terrible.
But we can get results quickly, but those are not going to be. You can't just take those results and say, okay, my life's fixed now and carry on. Yeah. It's a practice, a habit of being within those practices every day or week, or maybe twice a week.
Yes.
And so building that up. I suppose with your wellness clinic, because people might want to come here for a quick fix, as it were.
Yeah.
But how do you manage that with people and say, look, this is not going to just be a one-time thing. You need to have practices and habits in your life for these type of things.
Yeah, okay. Well, there are different, obviously, as I said before, we offer a lot of different therapies, and some of the therapies will be on a short or medium term, and other therapies will require medium to long term fix. So, say a simple example: if you have a vertebra slightly out of place, then your body, because it wants to stay straight, might tense some muscles, and you might have this kind of pain. So very often, if you go to see a osteopath, which we have here, the osteopath will normally analyze why things are wrong, what is the pattern, the muscles which are maybe overtense, the muscles are too relaxed, manipulate that area, and physically realign your spine, for example, in a way that is optimal for yourself. Sometimes, say a physiotherapist might do the same. The physiotherapist might also give you some exercises to do. And he says, okay, in order to prevent this from happening again, this is what you need to do. And it's funny how most people would say, yes, go home. The pain is gone or nearly gone. They don't do any exercise. And then a week later, 2 weeks later, come back. And there's a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, who used to be my student for years. And it's funny how he said, I went to the physio, he gave me exercise. I went back 2 weeks later, And he said, okay, did you do the exercise? And he said, yeah, of course. And the physio looked at him and said, you did? Because for them, it's absolutely normal that most people would not do the exercises. But obviously, if you tell me that in order to prevent my knee to hurt, I need to do a couple of squats in this way and the other, I will do it. I'm the kind of person that say, okay, in order to prevent my knee to hurt, I will do the squats. And I do it. But most people will not.
They want to fix the problems afterwards instead of preventing the problems, maybe.
So there are therapies who might be a quick fix. 1 or 2 sessions will help you, okay? But if you have, say, a mild depression, for example, a mild anxiety, which is kind of what I call the bread and butter for the majority of mental health practitioners like psychotherapists, counselors, psychologists, then yeah, sometimes it might be a fairly quick fix, maybe 6, 8, 10 sessions. This is what is called a fast therapy in mental health, 8, 10 sessions. And they might help you to analyze why you're feeling depressed, might analyze what are the issues around yourself.
And give you life skills for that.
And we do a bit of skill. They could do a bit of skill. But if you've been abused as a child, or if you are in an abusive relationship where, say, you are your partner is abusing you and these sort of things, then the quick fix doesn't exist. And you need to be prepared that you're going to come back. It's going to be painful. Many of the times it's going to be extremely painful because you're going to go and dig into your past and to some extent you leave a second time the emotion and the experience of being abused by your partner and this sort of thing. But little by little, this will give you some knowledge of how to cope with that. You don't necessarily forget about this. You don't want to forget about this, but you need to put this in a way that doesn't hurt as much as it is, and it allows you to have a functional existence.
Brilliant. Good stuff. And I think we can get a lot from today's session, in especially to your expertise in martial arts. Massimo, it's been really good speaking to you.
Thank you.
And good to get to know you and all the things you've been doing in Cambridge and helping people.
My pleasure.
And if people want to get hold of you, what's the website that they can go to?
Okay, well, we mentioned quite a few things. So the clinic is called Salus Wellness. Now, just a clarification, Salus in Latin means health. So in Italy or in Spain, I guess at least a third of all the gyms or spas or clinics have a Salus name. Right. Here in this country, a lot of people say, what is Salus? Salus. So the pronunciation is Salus. So Salus Wellness is my clinic, and you can find it at www.salus, wellness.com. And that's, you can find all of our practitioners and therapies we are offering and so on.
Yeah.
The club I mentioned before is called Charisma, spelled with a C-A, not C-H-A. So it's www.charisma.org.uk. And I also mentioned at the very beginning Martial Watt, which is a single word, martialwatt.com is my martial arts blog.
Yeah, and we can learn a lot from those experiences of yours through the blogs.
There's a lot to read. A lot of people don't like reading the long form nowadays. That's why I'm looking into new ways of delivering.
You're podcasting now.
Delivering my message. So recently, more or less in line with synchronized to you, more or less, I started a podcast vlog myself, which is called Personal and Business Growth. Is pnbgrowth.com, and there is a podcast vlog where I'm interviewing in a similar format to yours people who are either practitioners in my clinic. I'm interviewing a few of them because I want to give them the opportunity of talking long form how their therapy works, because a lot of people don't know how psychology or psychotherapy or certain kind of massage works. So I'm working on that.
That's good.
I'm also interviewing business owners and entrepreneurs I know in Cambridge. I know quite a lot, and I'm planning to interview most of them so that I give them an opportunity of talking about their trip, their journey. The personal business growth is about the journey of people who are today somewhat successful. They are running their own personal business, they're running their own enterprise, they're running their own private practice. How do they get there? Most people did not wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be a psychotherapist in 25 years. Many of them went through a long, convoluted trip. And this trip is very important to help other people to say, okay, I am in a job I don't like. Maybe I should consider retraining and become a professional. I might become a freelancer. I might be working. There are lots of things that can be done. And this is what I'm doing. And the next step, I will be interviewing still as part of the personal and business growth, martial artists. So because I'm a martial artist myself, I want to include that category of people who have dedicated many, many years of their life into martial arts. So that's my latest little baby.
Yeah, and we'll give links to your podcast as well at the bottom of the.
Thank you.
I'll put it on YouTube and then put down there and all the links to get hold of Massimo. And it'd be great to have you as a guest in a few months, and we can talk about some other aspects.
Delighted to be here anytime you want. Thank you very much for your
Thanks, Massimo.
interview. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.